Tonight, what could be the most atrocious scenes out of Ukraine yet. The horrifying images emerging from Bucha, a suburb of Kyiv. Civilian bodies lining the streets, some with their hands tied behind their backs. 2 mass graves discovered as Russian forces retreated. Ukraine's president calling what he witnessed there a genocide. As a resident of that town joins Top Story tonight. Here at home, the deadly shooting spree. 6 people killed and a dozen more injured in Sacramento. More than 100 shots fired at the chaotic scene. Police arresting a 26-year-old suspect late today. The urgent manhunt tonight for more shooters still underway. Spring slam. Millions under alert from Texas all the way up to New York. 5 straight days of severe weather expected to bring dangerous tornadoes, heavy winds, and hail. Al Roker standing by with the forecast. TINDER murder. A suspect extradited to New York to face justice after the brutal killing of a beloved nurse he allegedly met online. Authorities say he was released without bail just weeks before the horrific attack, despite his lengthy criminal record. Tonight, the victim's family demanding answers. Why was he allowed to walk free? Plus, crash landing. A passenger filming the chaotic moment. A hot air balloon came tumbling down in the California desert. What investigators say caused this accident. And love in the age of crypto. The con artists lurking on dating apps, convincing their victims to invest in cryptocurrency. What you need to know to avoid heartbreak and keep your money safe. Top Story starts right now. And good evening. We begin Top Story tonight with the devastating scenes unfolding in Ukraine. But unlike in weeks past, the images you're about to see are so visceral and so disturbing, they have led President Biden to insist Vladimir Putin stand trial for war crimes. Bucha, a suburb just north of Kyiv, liberated during Russia's withdrawal from the West. Their retreat leaving behind a trail of devastation. Bodies lining the streets, some with their hands tied behind their backs, apparently shot execution style at close range. And satellite imagery revealing a massive grave, nearly 50 feet long. At least 410 civilian bodies have been recovered from the areas surrounding Kyiv. Ukraine's president surveying the carnage up close. You can see him right there, walking through the charged streets, flanked by his military. Zelensky sparing no words, calling what he witnessed there evidence of a genocide. The apparent merciless attacks on civilians sparking outrage across the globe. So let's get right to Richard Engel on the ground in Ukraine again tonight.
When Russian troops pulled out of the Kyiv suburb of Bucha, they exposed the horrors of their failed occupation. Bodies lined the streets, some with their hands bound, executed at close range. Others bore the scars of torture. The president's office said women were raped. The mayor of Bucha said they discovered 2 mass graves. Other bodies were lined up in cellars. Today, Ukraine's President Zelensky visited Bucha and said the Russian army treated Ukrainian civilians worse than animals. This is a war crime, he said, and it will be recognized by the world as genocide. In another nearby town where Russian troops also left in retreat, the bodies of the mayor, her husband, and young son were unearthed in a shallow grave. President Biden is calling for a war crime trial to hold Russian President Putin accountable.
This guy is brutal, and what's happening in Bucha is outrageous, and everyone's seen it.
President Biden says he may impose more sanctions on Russia. But so far, U.S. sanctions have not deterred Putin from launching and continuing his assault. Russia's foreign minister today claimed Ukrainians staged the aftermath in Bucha with actors pretending to be dead. That it is preposterous given all the evidence may be beside the point. Independent polls in Russia show Putin's approval rating appears to be going up amid a wave of nationalism. Tonight, a senior U.S. defense official says 2/3 of Russian forces around the capital have been repositioned. Russia appears to be gearing up for a new offensive in the east and in the south along the Black Sea, with this new strike on an oil depot in Odessa. In the capital of the east, Kharkiv, Ihor, a Ukrainian sergeant, says Russia's atrocities only make him more determined to defend the city.
Behind my back, my city. In the city, my family, my mother and father, my wife and daughter. I'll do everything what I needed to stop them here. They won't pass me.
Tom, the Russian military offensive around Kyiv has largely collapsed, which is why we're getting a much clearer understanding of what's happening in those towns and villages. But there are still many areas in the south and east under Russian occupation, and the reports we're getting from there are unfortunately very consistent with wide-scale rape, looting, and murder. Tom?
Richard Engel leading us off tonight here on Top Story. For more on these breaking developments, these atrocities and the images we are seeing out of Bucha, I'm joined now by Vladimir Sable. He's a member of parliament and a resident of Bucha. Vladimir, thank you so much for joining Top Story. I know this is an incredibly tense time for you and all of your fellow citizens. Before we get to the horrific discoveries of the last couple days, very quickly, what kind of place was Bucha before the Russians invaded?
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Tom. So Bucha was a small suburban town close to Kyiv with around 40,000 people population. So it's a typical middle-class town where a lot of people from that worked in Kyiv lived. It was very convenient town. It was only 10 kilometers from Kyiv. Very nice, very green. Like you can just imagine. Let's say, very beautiful suburban, comfortable town. That was what Bucha was before the war.
And can you even recognize your town now when you see the photos of all the bombing and the destruction?
So the town now is unrecognizable. So it's really completely, let's say, in some of the areas, it's completely destroyed. In some of the areas, there are a lot of garbage from destroyed equipment, military equipment, a lot of, let's say, you can see a lot of dead bodies, graves. So it's really something I would never imagine 40 days ago before the war started. And I think no one in Ukraine would ever imagine that.
You're a member of parliament. You had to evacuate Bucha. I know you know people that stayed behind, specifically one friend who was informing you of what was going on. What happened to him?
Yeah, so indeed I evacuated on the second or third day when the war started, because Bucha was hit almost from day one. So 3 kilometers from my home, there was a Hostomel airport that was attacked actually in the noon of the first day of the war. But many people stayed. For example, on my street where there are 31 houses, 1/3 of the people stayed until 10th of March. But then after they were able to successfully evacuate, only one person stayed, so the next door neighbor of mine, and he stayed for 10 days. I was keeping contact with him, so he was telling me all the information, what's going on, all the horrors that were going on there. But then I lost connection with him on the 20th of March after 10 days. And since then, I didn't see him, and then I just learned that he was killed on 28th of March.
What was that like when you heard that news?
It's horrible. So especially because I knew this person, so he was very kind. So he didn't do anything bad for everyone. So he was earning his life to build that house in Bucha. So and that actually was the reason he decided not to leave, because he didn't want to leave behind all his life. And then, like when I learned then, this was so sad, and like I cannot imagine any reason why he or other hundreds of people, civilians that were killed in Bucha. And like so, you see that. After 1st of April, when the Ukrainian army entered the city, so we started to learn more and more this horrific facts about mass graves, about people being tortured in the basement with their hand tied, and also a lot of bodies, which is now confirmed by satellite images, a lot of bodies laying on the streets for weeks, actually. So this is there is no excuse for that. So no one can understand what is the reason behind why these people from Russia were killing innocent civilians.
You know, when you hear something, Vladimir, when you hear something, your mind can obviously paint that terrible picture. But when you actually saw the images, the photos, up close, the video, what did you think?
So I think that the first thought that and I think lots of people, most of people in Ukraine have, that this should be, someone should pay for that. So people that did that, they should be punished. So it cannot be left unpunished, not only because we Ukrainians want, because this is something that shouldn't happen in 21st century. So if such horrific massacres are not punished by Ukraine, by the whole world, so these things will start happen in the future in other places.
Vladimir Sable, a member of Parliament of Ukraine. Vladimir, we thank you for your time. We now move on to the deadly mass shooting back here at home in Sacramento, California. A 26-year-old arrested today for the shooting spree in the city's busy entertainment district that left at least 6 people dead and more than a dozen injured. But police say they're still searching for more suspects. Miguel Almaguer has the latest from Sacramento.
Tonight, Sacramento police have arrested one shooter behind the rapid, unrelenting barrage of gunfire. 26-year-old Dondre Martin, one of multiple gunmen who investigators say terrorized Sacramento's entertainment district, leaving 6 dead and another 12 wounded.
People just start diving down on the ground and falling down.
The scene of chaos and carnage, the deadliest mass shooting in city history.
Multiple victims, CPR is in progress.
When police arrived after the volley of gunfire at 2 a.m. Sunday, the bloodied streets were covered in shattered glass, more than 100 spent bullet casings, and innocent victims wounded and dying in the roadway. They ranged in age from 21 to 57.
I mean, that was a massacre.
Pamela Harris says her son Sergio, a father of 3, was caught in the crossfire.
I know it's going to be difficult for me not seeing my son every day. He was a good person. He was always there to help others. Just so happened he got struck by the bullet.
While video shows a large brawl broke out just before the bloodshed, police don't know if the fight is connected to the shooting.
You've made one arrest. How likely is it you'll make more?
Well, we do know that there are multiple shooters, and so our team is actively working on it, and we're certainly continuing to identify people that were involved in this, witnesses, victims, and certainly the suspects.
Tonight, a manhunt underway for at least one more gunman as a broken community picks up the pieces of shattered lives.
All right, Miguel joins us now. Miguel, do we know the status of those that are injured but survived the shooting?
Well, Tom, police have not released the names of the victims, but we do know they were taken to the hospital in stable condition and also critical condition. Several of those people who have been hospitalized have been released. Some even drove themselves to the hospitals, but others do remain in critical condition tonight, Tom.
All right, Miguel, thank you for that. Now to the trial in another mass shooting here in the U.S. It's day 1 of jury selection in the trial of convicted school shooter Nicholas Cruz, who killed 17 people at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida back in 2018. Now members of that community are set to decide if Cruz is sentenced to life in prison or the death penalty. Priscilla Thompson has more.
The fate of the man responsible for one of the deadliest school shootings in U.S. history will soon be in the hands of 12 jurors.
The punishment is either life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or death.
Jury selection is underway in the trial of now 23-year-old Nicholas Cruz. Cruz pleaded guilty to 17 counts of first-degree murder in October for killing 14 students and 3 staff members at Parkland, Florida's Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018.
I have to live with this every day, and it brings me nightmares, and I can't live with myself sometimes.
More than 1,000 potential jurors were on hand at the Broward County Courthouse Monday as jury selection began. The prosecution and defense now tasked with seating a jury that will decide whether Cruz receives life in prison without parole or be sentenced to death.
A jury pool that large, is that normal?
For high-profile cases, you need a lot of potential jurors. In this community, it's easy to imagine that a lot of jurors know victims or know family members of victims or simply live so close to the school that they can't get that shooting day out of their mind.
Jurors won't be excused for knowing about the case, but will be asked two key questions: if they could set aside what they know of the case to be objective, and whether they could impose the death penalty.
The defense's mission here is present mitigation evidence and show that this is still a life worth saving.
Cruz was 19 years old at the time of the shooting, had a history of behavioral issues, and had been kicked out of the high school the year before. He bought the guns he used, including an AR-15 style weapon, legally, passing a background check. The shooting ignited massive protests in support of gun reform, led by some of the students inside the school on that day.
Are we ready to bring in the next panel?
In all, 12 jurors and 20 alternates must be seated for deliberations and sentencing to begin. As for the arguments they may hear,
look for the defense to give a statement, something to the effect of, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you don't need to worry about this defendant being at large ever again, no matter what. He will be in prison for the rest of his life.
If the jury is unable to reach a unanimous decision, Cruz will ultimately be sentenced to life in prison. The selection process alone is expected to last through April, with the trial slated to run from May to September.
All right, Priscilla joins us now live on set. So, Priscilla, you walked us through what the defense is going to do. What do we think the prosecution is going to argue here?
Well, legal experts say the prosecution will likely have an easier time here than the defense because of the high-profile nature of this case and because the defendant has already pleaded guilty to 17 counts of murder. And so legal experts say they expect the prosecution are really going to highlight the horrific nature of this case. But an important point to re-emphasize, in order for Nicholas Cruz to get the death penalty, all 12 of those jurors have to vote yes. If it is not a unanimous vote, then he will get life in prison.
Priscilla Thompson for us tonight. Priscilla, thank you for that. I want to turn now to the extreme weather we've been covering over the last week that is firing back up. Nationwide, a relentless 5-day stretch of severe storms ahead. Millions at risk for hail, damaging winds, and tornadoes in the South, where punishing weather has not let up since the start of this spring. The Midwest and the Northeast also in the crosshairs. So for all of that, I want to bring in Al Roker. He's going to time it out for us. And Al, it's been such a busy spring.
I mean, look, March already set a record for number of tornadoes for the month, all-time records. And now we're seeing extreme thunderstorms firing up in northern Texas along the Texas-Oklahoma border. We got severe thunderstorm watches out already. So for tonight, we're looking at 15 million people from Dallas, Shreveport, Lufkin, Jackson in an enhanced risk. But Austin, Lake Charles, and New Orleans, all possibility. Nighttime tornadoes, twice as deadly as the daytime variety. Tomorrow, 21 million people from New Orleans, Mobile, Montgomery, Macon, Charleston, back down to Jacksonville. And then on Wednesday, 33 million. That number jumps up because we've got Atlanta now in the mix, Macon and Montgomery, Mobile, Tallahassee, down to Tampa and up to Charlotte. The systems finally move offshore on Thursday, but we still have a risk from the Delmarva Peninsula all the way down to Myrtle Beach. Still can't rule out a tornado or two. First storm comes up tonight. Rumbling storms from Texas to Mississippi. Damaging winds, tornado, torrential rain. The ground's already soaked, so we have the possibility of flooding tomorrow as this front tracks through the southeast. Then we move on into Wednesday. Second front comes in. This is going to be bringing a renewed risk for severe weather from the Ohio Valley to the Gulf Coast. 2 inches of rain falling per hour possible, especially throughout the southeast. Locally, some folks could see 4 inches. And I hate to be the bearer of bad tidings, but Tom, the latest models are hinting at something severe again Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week.
Such a wild spring so far. All right, Al, I know you'll stay on top of it. Al, thanks for that. Now to top stories, power and politics, the latest headlines from Washington and beyond. Tonight, former President Trump has begun endorsing candidates for the midterms, challenging 12 major Republican incumbents. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard has a story.
Donald Trump remains the country's most influential Republican more than a year after his exit from Washington.
We are going to fight for America like no one has ever fought before.
But in these 2022 midterms, he's putting that influence to the test. Trump is trying to rid the party of these 12 Republican incumbents by backing primary challengers to them. Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski, Georgia's governor and Secretary of State, Congresswoman Liz Cheney, and 8 other GOP House members. One of them, Tom Rice.
I voted with him 94% of the time on the floor.
But the South Carolina Republican also voted to impeach Trump after the January 6th insurrection.
Tom Rice joined the Democrats' deranged impeachment witch hunt hoax.
Trump now holding rallies across the country with the candidates he has endorsed.
Trump demands absolute loyalty. That's what he's about.
He perceives you as an opposition force within the Republican Party.
He's driven by power and he's driven by revenge. Of anybody I've ever met, he's probably the most spiteful, vengeful person I've ever met.
Just this weekend, Trump pushed for his picks in Michigan.
You must vote for America First Republicans.
Fred Upton is one of his targets. He has served in Congress for more than 3 decades, but he also voted to impeach.
I'm not a rubber stamp. If you want that, you got the wrong guy.
Does your ability to win the general election matter as much to Trump as your loyalty to him?
Probably doesn't mean much to him, but he's a little bit on a scorched earth path.
Other Republicans who have crossed Trump in the past have found themselves on the outs.
If you win your race against this Trump-backed challenger, what message is sent then to the former president?
He's not as strong as he might have thought that he was.
The success of Trump's candidates will make it clear just how influential he remains.
All right, and with that, Vaughn joins us now live in studio. So this is a big test, right? He's settling scores, but we're also going to learn just how powerful he is within the Republican Party.
And the potential that Republican voters ignore what he says. He's only done this twice before. In 2018, in which there was a Republican incumbent, and he endorsed challengers to them. He's making himself vulnerable in these races. And if he were to lose them, another Republican, Ron DeSantis, Mike Pence, could make the case that there's room in this Republican Party for another leader.
But still, so many Republican candidates are out there trying to vie for his endorsements. We'll have to see how this works out in the midterms. Vaughn, thanks so much for that. And we are following another late-breaking headline out of Washington tonight. Republican Senators Lisa Murkowski and Mitt Romney saying they will vote to confirm Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson. They join fellow Republican Susan Collins, who has already indicated her support of Jackson. Their support likely paving the way for the historic confirmation, with the full Senate expected to vote by the end of this week. All right, we want to turn now to another major headline out of Silicon Valley. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has bought a 9.2% stake in Twitter. The revelation, a shock to many, as Musk, now the social media platform's biggest shareholder, is also one of the site's loudest critics. For more, I want to bring in CNBC's technology correspondent, Steve Kovac, for more with this. Steve, thanks for joining Top Story tonight. So this purchase comes less than 2 weeks after Musk criticized the company, actually polling his own followers on Twitter about whether or not the platform upholds the tenets of free speech, tweeting, quote, I think we have the quote here. It says, free speech is essential to a functioning democracy. Do you believe Twitter rigorously adheres to this principle? So what do you think he's up to here?
Well, Tom, that's quite a loaded question. You never know what Elon Musk is actually up to, but we can kind of read between the tea leaves here. So around the same time he sent out that Twitter poll, we know now he bought this giant stake in Twitter. Now, he's not doing this to make money, Tom. He has plenty of money. In fact, if he wanted to, he can buy the entire company outright. That's how much money he has just on hand right now. So what this is really about is kind of pushing forward what he believes Twitter is such an important platform for the discourse that we have here in the United States and around the world, that it should adhere more to these classic versions of free speech principles. What he doesn't realize is Twitter is a private company and it gets to set its own rules. And we've seen so many examples over the years of people trying to create alternate versions of Twitter, whether it's the new Trump app, Truth Social, Parler, Gab, and so forth. All of those have failed horribly. What's really interesting about this is we're seeing someone who's rich enough and powerful enough to try to do it from the inside of Twitter. That's the difference, Tom.
As such a large stakeholder, could Musk sort of make his presence felt if he chose to?
Well, right now, he's what's called a passive investor, meaning he's just like any other person who goes out there and buys up stock. But then again, you don't buy nearly 10% of a company like Twitter unless you really want to make moves. So what we're watching here at CNBC, Tom, is when does he go from being a passive actor in the company into an active one? He doesn't really need to make money off of this trade, even though he already has. It's clear he has bigger designs in mind for Twitter.
Yeah, so, you know, and on that point, the company's former CEO, Jack Dorsey, I'll remind our viewers, stepped down back in November, and after the investment firm Elliott Management took a sizable stake, I think, in early 2020. What does this latest shakeup mean for Twitter's use? Because and correct me if I'm wrong here, Musk's take is much bigger than Elliott Management. So now he has an even bigger footprint than they do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just bigger, it is the biggest stake in Twitter. Elon Musk, just one person, not a fund like Elliott Management, one person has 9% of the company. So, you know, if and when he decides to throw his weight around and push for change within the company, when board seats are up for new members, he can push for new board members who kind of align with his thinking, or he can try to get himself on the board to help make these decisions. And, you know, once you have power on the board, you have power over the CEO and you have power over the company.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens to any of his tweets if he gets flagged for anything in the future. Great having you tonight. Thanks so much for joining Top Story. Still ahead tonight, the TINDER murder, a man allegedly killing a woman he met on the app just weeks after being let out on bail for strangling a different woman. So why was he allowed to walk free? Plus, the plane crashing into a front yard in New Jersey and taking out power lines, what we're learning about the pilot on board. And TEFLON oligarch, the Russian billionaire reportedly poisoned at peace talks in Kyiv, what the oil mogul stands to lose if the U.S. sanctions him next. Top Story, just getting started. Back now with the TINDER date that ended in murder, a man facing new murder charges for the brutal killing of a New York City nurse in 2018. Prosecutors say he met the victim online just weeks after he was released without bail for strangulation. NBC's Isa Gutierrez has that story, and we want to warn you, some of the details in this story may be disturbing.
Tonight, an accused killer extradited across the country in the case of a TINDER date turned deadly. 31-year-old Danielle Drayton could face decades in prison after a New York district attorney says he murdered a beloved nurse in her home after taking her out on a date in New York City back in 2018. Meanwhile, questions of how and why he was free after a history of violence against women linger for a family seeking justice.
It makes me sick to my stomach. I can't believe somebody, a monster like that would be on the street.
The victim was 29-year-old Samantha Stewart. The DA says her brother found her wrapped in a blanket on the floor of her bedroom, naked and strangled with her teeth knocked out. The gruesome scene came after authorities say Stewart and Drayton met on TINDER. In a press release last week, Queens County District Attorney Melinda Katz said Drayton was a, quote, charmer online, but was in fact an alleged sexual predator. Then alleging Drayton beat and strangled Stewart in her home and engaged in sexual conduct with her dead body. Her neighbor was in the downstairs apartment.
I heard a rumbling boom, 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 boom on the step coming down, so I figure, what those kids making noise up there?
Just weeks before the alleged murder of Stewart, a New York judge released Drayton without bail in a separate strangulation case, which is still open.
If he was locked up, my daughter would be still alive today.
At the time, a court spokesperson told WNBC the judge was not aware of Drayton's extensive criminal history in his home state of Connecticut, which included years behind bars for strangulation and other charges. We reached out to the Nassau County District Attorney's Office for comment on why his previous convictions were not considered, but did not get an immediate answer.
This represents the most egregious example of a system failure that I can think of. Judges are supposed to have this information readily available to them when they are making these types of decisions. This was a person who was a threat to the general public and a threat to women, and we found this out in the most horrific of ways.
After Stewart's death, prosecutors say Drayton allegedly used her credit card to buy a cross-country plane ticket to California. He was arrested in Los Angeles a week later after police there said he raped a different woman who he met during an Uber ride. We reached out to Drayton's attorney and did not immediately hear back. In a 2018 interview with the New York Daily News, Drayton said voices in his head made him kill Samantha Stewart.
What I would like to say to young women dating, they need to be careful.
All right, Issa joins us now live in studio. So, Issa, I guess the big question is, if this happened in 2018, it's now 2022, why is he being extradited now?
Yeah, well, Tom, we asked that exact question to the Queens County DA's office today, and what they told us is it comes down to the fact that he was in California. So remember, you just heard in the story, after the alleged murder of Stewart, he went to California and was later arrested there in Los Angeles in another unrelated case, right? So because of that, prosecutors there had jurisdiction over him. They had priority to pursue their charges first. So that is why the DA here says that it took this long. Just recently, California said, you know what, let's defer him to New York now, so he will be extradited and face these more serious charges here in New York, which could lead to up to 25 years in prison for him. This news, the Stewart family has been waiting for nearly 3 years, Tom, so really big for them.
Yeah, and their initial questions of why he was out are valid as well. Alrighty, so we thank you for that. We now turn to the latest on the Russian oligarch, Roman Abramovich. He's back in the spotlight after reports surfaced he was poisoned following peace talks with Ukraine. CNBC's Robert Frank has a look at how he got his power and what he stands to lose amid global sanctions.
The image was extraordinary. Roman Abramovich, the famous Russian oligarch under sanctions in Europe, helping to lead the peace talks with Ukraine. And then, news reports that Abramovich was poisoned, adding to the mystery of one of Russia's richest and most elusive billionaires. Orphaned as a child in northern Russia, Abramovich grew up to become an expert trader during the fall of the Soviet Union. He bought an oil company for $200 million, then sold it back to the government for $12 billion. He expanded into aluminum and steel, the European Union citing his, quote, long and close ties to Vladimir Putin.
From a very young age, Abramovich betrayed a very high level of ambition, and he combined it with great personal charm and emotional intelligence. What people say about him is that while some oligarchs are rather coarse and aggressive individuals, he always managed to charm people on the way up.
In the West, he became the king of conspicuous consumption, buying the Chelsea Football Club, a fleet of mega yachts, including the world's second largest, trophy homes in London, Aspen, St. Bart's, the south of France, and Israel. His fortune once topped $23 billion. Now it's down to around $14 billion and falling since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. His yachts fleeing to safety in Turkey. Chelsea is being sold off along with his London mansion. The U.S. has not sanctioned him yet.
I'm not going to comment on the calculus about exactly what determines if he is or isn't sanctioned. I just say that it remains a possibility.
Now his fortune and his future hanging in part on a fragile peace process.
The peace talks give Abramovich an opportunity to redeem himself and get himself out of the terrible predicament he finds himself in now.
All right, Robert Frank joins us now. Robert, I have a couple questions for you. First, the Wall Street Journal has reported some Ukrainian officials have praised Abramovich's, quote, constructive role in peace talks, partly because he knows Putin so well. So how has the transition from oligarch to diplomat gone so far?
Well, his presence there is a bit of a mystery. The Ukrainians say that when they need to reach Putin, they can turn to Abramovich and say, please ask your boss X, Y, Z. And Abramovich will come back and say, well, here's the solution, or here are the other issues. So the question then is, if Abramovich is the link to Putin in these peace talks, why are there other Russians in the Russian delegation? What are they there for? And then secondly, if Putin is truly Abramovich's boss, then why isn't Abramovich being sanctioned? Abramovich has argued for years that he has no real political connection to the Kremlin and that he has no influence on Vladimir Putin. And so I think for the U.S. officials, their patience is being worn thin and Abramovich's time is running out. But for now, they see him as a useful link to Putin in these peace talks.
Robert, what more do we know about these allegations of poisoning? We know that Abramovich was doing these negotiations in Kyiv at one point, and he said that he had gotten some kind of rash, that they thought he had been poisoned, but it was confusing because usually it's Vladimir Putin, the one poisoning people, but in this case, Abramovich is his friend. So do we know what happened there?
What we do know is that in early March, Abramovich was displaying some symptoms of having teary eyes and some skin peeling, and people assumed that that was poisoning. What we now know, or at least what Turkish officials are saying, is that after that poisoning in Kyiv, he was flown to Turkey, treated secretly in a hospital. And some people believe that it may have been some kind of tear gas or canister that went off near the negotiations and therefore gave him those symptoms that some say poisoning. But we just don't know because we're now too far from the poisoning event and there were no samples taken at the time. So that is yet another mystery about Abramovich and these peace talks.
CNBC's Robert Frank for us tonight. Robert, thank you for that. Coming up next, the crash landing caught on camera. A hot air balloon plummeting towards the ground. One passenger captured it all on his phone. An update on their condition when we come back. Stay with us. All right, back now with Top Stories news feed, and we begin with the alleged drunk driver accused of killing a Texas deputy. Authorities say 36-year-old Adolfo Serrano was fleeing the scene of another crash when he slammed into the officer's patrol car, causing it to burst into flames. The 32-year-old deputy, who was an Army veteran and mother, was killed at the scene. Serrano's bond was set at $750,000. Now to the hot air balloon crash caught on camera in California. A video circulating on social media showing the balloon's basket hurtling to the ground in Riverside County. Strong winds then dragging the balloon through rocks and dirt. The flight guide heard shouting to passengers to hang on. The user who shot the video says no one was hurt. Next to the small plane crash in the front yard of a home in New Jersey, the plane taking out some power lines, bushes, and landing on top of a car parked in the driveway. The house is located next to a small airport. The pilot, who was the only person on board, did survive and is expected to be okay. No injuries yet reported on the ground. Power was briefly knocked out to a nearby home. No word on what caused this crash. And a consumer alert tonight, 2 Disney-branded hand sanitizers are being recalled because they may contain carcinogens. The FDA says tests showed the products that feature Mandalorian and Mickey Mouse designs contain benzene and methanol. Anyone who purchased the hand sanitizer is urged to throw it out. We'll have much more information on NBCnews.com. All right, next we want to continue our coverage from Ukraine after those mass killings. Our Molly Hunter speaking to survivors about what they witnessed, and we warn you, some of the images you're about to see are disturbing.
Today in Bucha, they're going house to house, working quickly, desperately trying to remove the landmines the Russians left behind. Russian soldiers occupied Ludmila's home for more than a month. They broke the locks on the doors. She was forced downstairs to the basement. They threatened to throw grenades at us, she says. They cursed at us, saying our husbands were Nazis. If you could give me one Russian, I would chop him up the same way they chop up people in neighboring Irpin. And throughout Bucha today, the carnage laid bare in the sun. Olenka's brother had been missing for more than a week. She says we found him 5 days ago, lying on the street. 3 bullets to the leg, 1 to the heart, 1 to the lungs. Their mother, standing next to his backyard grave, plans to rebury her son like he deserves.
No one knows will we survive.
And here in the western city of Lviv, we meet 32-year-old Andrei Lebeda.
I didn't expect that they are so heartless.
With his brother-in-law Nikolai and their families, they escaped Bucha on March 9th.
We saw horrific things like the murdered people on the street outside, like the civilians, and they just was shot. They were just killed.
Where were the gunshot wounds?
Like the chest, yeah, something like this.
And these were people in civilian clothes, for sure.
For sure, civilians.
Now relatively safe, they say Lviv feels like an alternate universe.
How does it feel looking at all of the pictures that we're seeing over this weekend? And you guys saw a lot of them.
It could be us. That's it.
It could be you.
Yes, it could be us. This is just the proof that it was just a luck that we survived, just a luck. No less, no more.
Now, Tom, we spoke with Human Rights Watch today. They were on the ground in Bucha today. They're really urging the Ukrainian government to protect and preserve any evidence of apparent war crimes. That's going to be critical in any future trials. Tom?
All right, Molly Hunter for us. Molly, thank you. Now to the Americas. Tonight we head to the border of Honduras and Nicaragua, where immigration officials are overwhelmed. Thousands of migrants entering the country in just the last 3 weeks in hopes of making it to the U.S. But now, small border towns are strapped for resources and declaring states of emergency. Zincle Esenwa has a story.
Tonight, border towns in Honduras overwhelmed by a surge of migrants. Shelters at full capacity, women and young children sleeping on the ground, and now towns like Donley declaring a state of emergency.
How many migrants are coming into the country?
So we have a daily average of 400 to 500 on Donley's border.
So far this year, government officials say more than 7,000 migrants have entered Honduras in just the span of 3 weeks, adding that migrants are coming from South America, the Caribbean, and African nations. Many hoping to reach the States in pursuit of the American dream, though upon arrival, it's more of a nightmare. One man telling our Telemundo partners he traveled from Ghana.
Aqui é Honduras, o migração trata a gente muito malo.
Many come without resources, and we have to give them shelter and food.
Honduras also issuing a $220 administrative penalty for migrants who enter without proper documentation. Advocates now asking the fee be waived. Frustrated local leaders saying the government should do more.
So what's the strain of having all of these migrants come in?
As a country, we didn't have the infrastructure or the economic resources to deal with this high influx of migrants.
These migrants adding to the already large number of Honduran migrants reaching the U.S. border. Last fiscal year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection recording more than 300,000 crossings from Honduras, the country now the second highest source of migrants following Mexico.
If this issue isn't addressed, what's the risk?
We need coordination in order to provide these migrants a way to safely transit through our country.
For now, neighboring countries bracing as thousands continue their journey north.
All right, Zincle joins us now live. Zincle, you mentioned that migrants are coming from all over the world. What are the demographics of those migrants just arriving?
Yeah, Tom, so Honduras has seen migrants from South America, the Caribbean, and African nations. And the government official I spoke with actually said of the 7,000 migrants who have arrived over the last 3 weeks, over 5,000 are Cuban, Tom. So a lot of different communities are being impacted by this right now. Tom?
Zincle has some for us tonight. Zincle, thank you for that. Now to top stories, global watch and the political turmoil in Pakistan. Prime Minister Imran Khan's blocking a no-confidence vote to remove him from power and then moving to dissolve the country's parliament. Pakistan's Supreme Court now deciding if he has the authority to do that. Khan has accused the U.S. of working with his opposition because of his ties to Russia, claims the U.S. has strongly denied. And another round of heavy rains and mudslides hitting Brazil's Rio de Janeiro. Aerial footage shows streets submerged after the region received a record 40 inches of rainfall. At least 16 people have been killed so far. President Bolsonaro announced he will deploy military aircrafts to help with rescue efforts. And Costa Rica has elected a new president. Rodrigo Chavez, political newcomer and former World Bank official, beating out ex-Costa Rican President Jose Maria Figueres in a runoff election Sunday. The 60-year-old economist promising radical change as the country faces mounting national debt. Chavez is set to take office early next month. All right, when we come back, love in the age of crypto, the scammers taking advantage of people looking for love online, why some people are feeling heartbroken after investing in digital currency. Vicky Nguyen joins Top Story to explain. Stay with us. All right, back now with Money Talks. And tonight, our network-wide series, Crypto Universe. Digital currency has skyrocketed into the national spotlight with promises of big money. We've been telling you about it for months since we launched this fine broadcast. While most crypto is legitimate, it's also become a profitable target for scammers who are using it to lure investors and those looking for love. Here's NBC News senior consumer investigative correspondent Vicky Nguyen with what you need to know to protect your money and your heart.
Not a trade, I'm trading crypto.
Cryptocurrency making a big splash from celebrity ads to bullish investors.
Bitcoin is here to stay.
There are more than 17,000 different types of crypto on the market with an estimated value over $2 trillion. While crypto has helped many investors make money, Homeland Security says the digital currency is also attracting some scammers who rely on romance to attract their targets.
I was looking for, someone to have some fun with. Let's go hiking, let's go have dinner.
Mike, who asked us not to reveal his last name, is retired and single. He went on dating app TINDER to find companionship, but says he was swindled through a sophisticated crypto investment scheme.
How much money did you lose to this scam?
I sent about $277,000.
That money is gone?
Yes.
He says it started in July when he connected with someone named Jenny, who said she was from Malaysia. She quickly asked him to leave Tinder and talk on WhatsApp, initially messaging him about visiting and meeting in person. But then the conversation turned to money.
So telling me that her uncle, he was the world expert in Bitcoin.
Jenny persuaded him to invest $5,000 with a legitimate crypto site. But he says she then encouraged him to move it to a different platform and sent him a website where he could see his crypto investment growing.
I just made $5,000. So that was where she would get me excited and say, Mike, so you got to send more money. And then I was making, $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 profit.
4 months later, Mike realized the profits weren't real. This exact scam is becoming more common, according to Amy Knopfziger, the director of fraud victim support at AARP.
You'll see earnings. You'll even be able to withdraw some money at some point. But then when you want to draw your whole balance, that's when you realize you've been a victim, because they say that there's usually a penalty or fee, and it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
She says the lure of love plus crypto, money that's instant and untraceable, is a match made in scam heaven.
Last year, we got 1 or 2 complaints a week. Right now, we're probably getting 2 to 3 complaints a day. If you think it will never happen to you, you're wrong. It can and it will.
And it isn't just romance. Plenty of scammers are preying on the crypto craze.
People think that if they invest in it, they can just immediately take $1,000 and turn it into $1 million.
Ricky Patel is the acting special agent in charge of the New York office of HSI. He specializes in cybercrime.
Who are the people who are most commonly targeted for these scams?
It runs the full gamut. It's the constant reaching out to them and hitting them, whether it's emails or phone calls or text messages. Everything, every avenue they're actually trying to exploit.
Patel says cryptocurrency is quickly becoming the preferred method of payment for traditional scams like phishing, where someone sends a text, email, or phone call demanding payment for everything from your taxes to insurance. He says beware of business compromise scams too. When you get a message that looks like it's coming from a legitimate business or even your bank, never send payment and always contact the business directly.
Once you send that money, it's very difficult to get it back.
Correct. Once you send that money, it goes to exchanges. It's almost impossible to get it back, especially if you don't know who the other side is.
And people are losing big money to crypto scams. The FTC says last year, credit card payments to fraudsters totaled about $44 million. For crypto scammers, it was 6 times as high, $294 million. As for Mike, he says he doubts he'll ever recover his $277,000. Now sharing his story as a warning. His message to the scammers:
I want them to spend the rest of their lives in prison.
All right, Vicki joins Top Story tonight. Vicki, I'm curious, did Mike ever actually meet Jenny in person, or was this entire scam done through Tinder, WhatsApp, and conversations over the phone?
Now, that's the thing, Tom. Hindsight is 20/20. But Jenny kept promising she was going to come to the United States, that they were going to meet up. And in the meantime, she cleverly moved the conversation from Tinder to that encrypted WhatsApp. And that's when she started introducing lots of photos, lots of promises. And then the investment angle came up. And that's what got Mike. He said he didn't come on to, look for any investment or money advice. It was just Jenny steering the conversation that way. So that was really the first red flag, but it took a little while for him to piece together that whole picture.
What stood out to me in some of your reporting was that Jenny was able to send Mike a website that showed his investment growing. You used the word sophisticated, and I think that's fair because that's not something you're just going to do with your iPhone. What are some signs people should look out for?
It was so elaborate, Tom, absolutely, and that gives you the level of what these fraudsters are really up to. But the number one tip here is to stick with reputable sites that are real cryptocurrency trading sites that you've heard of, that have been reviewed, that your friends use. And Mike's tip was to keep them in the U.S. as well, because if you recall, he started on crypto.com. It was Jenny then convincing him to move the money to a private website that her alleged uncle manages. And then from there, it appears the fraudsters really just controlled everything. They made it look like his money was growing. They even allowed him to take out small withdrawals. That is how sophisticated and elaborate these schemes are, Tom.
Vicki win for us tonight. Vicki, thank you for that. Still ahead tonight, the unexpected prom date. The North Dakota senior without a date to the big dance until his dad came up with a grand idea. That sweet story when we come back. Finally tonight, one high school senior in North Dakota is making a splash with his special prom date. Their first dance bringing many in the room to tears.
A high school gym, some neon lights, and a lot of balloons. Prom season is underway in Waterford City, North Dakota. But before his high school's dance, senior Dakota Wallen wasn't excited.
Well, I've never really been a dance kind of guy. I hated them.
But on a suggestion from his dad, he flipped the prom script. Instead of asking someone his age to the big dance, Dakota asked his 92-year-old great-grandmother, Madeline.
My grandma had this old truck, and it's a 1985 Dodge, and she handed that down to me, and I thought that would be a great way to ask her. So I took that truck to her house, and I took a poster board, and I said, "Can I take you to prom in this old truck?" And she loved it.
That promposal, a first for Madeline. She told our affiliate KFYR she doesn't remember any proms from her teenage years. Most of those years were spent working on the family farm, so this was a first.
She was pretty speechless, and all she could think about is why me instead of all those other girls in school.
On the night of the prom, great-grandmother put on her best dress and grandson his best cowboy hat. Dakota even busting out the corsage. Then, the two walking into prom together.
Walking beside my great-grandson, listening to all this music as we walked, and people clapping and hollering.
For a guy who wasn't that into dances. Now on the dance floor with his date stealing the show.
When they saw my grandma, everybody was saying how beautiful she looked and how many tears people were crying about.
A night, and now a memory grandmother and grandson will hold on to forever.
If you get the chance to do that with one of your grandparents, honestly, take it. It is one of the best experiences you will ever have.
We thank Dakota and his great-grandmother for sharing that story, and we thank you for watching Top Story tonight. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.